Concola, and Cédal Shees, I'd like to offer my sympathies, indeed sympathies of the technical group, to the community of Woolwich in South London, and say how much we absolutely, are full of revulsion at what happened yesterday. Taoiseach, we've heard a lot of talk in the past few days about the need for accountability and transparency in Irish politics, especially at ministerial level. We've heard that the Minister for Justice, time and time again, that it was his judgment, and that it was both necessary and in the public interest, that he point out that Deputy Wallace had himself been beneficiary of discretion exercised by Garda Síochána. The Minister also said that he made the point not to make a political charge, nor for any personal benefit, but to defend the integrity of Garda Síochána. So it is in that context, Taoiseach, and strictly with those concerns in mind, that I ask, could you please inform the House, if either you or an Taoiseach are aware, as to whether the Minister himself was stopped at a Garda checkpoint in Dublin in late February and March 2011. This was in the intervening period between the general election and shortly before he was appointed Minister for Justice to that august office. Are you or the Taoiseach aware whether he was cautioned on that occasion by a Garda at the checkpoint under the Road Traffic Act 2010, or whether the Gardaí on that occasion used their discretion? This would seem to have a very high bearing on the whole debate. Whether he was asked to produce a specimen of breath under the mandatory breath testing provision contained in the Road Traffic Act 2010, and whether his behaviour and reaction to this request was appropriate and indeed cordial, or whether he attempted to use the privilege of travelling to and from the Dáil as a means of avoiding giving the breath test or being stopped at a Garda checkpoint, and as to whether in fact he did give a specimen of breath on that occasion. Finally, Taoiseach, will you, in the public interest and to facilitate the greater transparency, will you, Taoiseach, in the public interest and to facilitate greater transparency, call on the Minister to make available immediately the Garda report which exists into that incident? Thank you.
Taoiseach.
I have no idea. I have no idea if the Minister. I have no idea if the Minister for Justice was stopped by Gardaí before the election, after the election, whenever. How would I know that? The only thing I can say to you, Deputy McGrath, is that I remember being stopped myself, breath tested at Galloping Green on my way home one night. Happily, I passed it. I was stopped on another occasion at the Loughlinstown roundabout. I can account for myself, but I certainly can't account as to when any other member of this House, or any other member of the public for that matter, was stopped by Gardaí, breathalyzed or cautioned or whatever. I think that is a matter, as we've discussed here over the course of the last couple of days, it's a matter between the Gardaí and the individuals concerned. I have no idea what you are talking about.
Deputy McGrath.
I thank the Taoiseach. Thanks, Taoiseach. I don't raise it as a joke. Yes. And I think you're missing the point, Taoiseach, if I might suggest. It's the Minister of Justice we're talking about now. It's because of the events since he was appointed Minister of Justice and the way he has treated the public, and indeed in Garda Síochána. The events of last week involving the fixed penalty points constantly highlighted the principles that there must be one law in this country that applies to all citizens. It also highlighted the ongoing need to restore and maintain public confidence in the institutions of the state. I think that's a duty that you have, Taoiseach, and not allow the perception to develop that there is a complete double standard operating here. So, Taoiseach, I mean, I hope you think it's funny, like many other things your government seem to think is funny that's happening to this country, the misery the people are put into. And I don't expect you to know, but I would expect you to inform yourself and ask the Taoiseach to be informed and to clarify that matter, and ask the Minister to come back before the House again and make a statement and clarify and make the Garda report available. Marcia de Hull.
Well, as I said, I mean, I don't have any information in relation to what the deputy is raising. I think the issue here, and in relation to the contact that the public have with the Gardaí on road traffic matters, and I think it's where most people come into direct contact with the the enforcement of the law. I think the critical issue is, first of all, that the law is applied fairly and evenly to everybody. Secondly, as we have discussed here on a number of occasions, there is a discretion, there is a judgment, if you like, there's a common sense approach that Gardai are expected to take, and that by and large they do take in the way in which they apply the law. And I think it is appropriate that that continues. And I also think in the context of the fixed penalty points regime that it continues in that regard. It is also important that there is confidence all round that the law is being enforced in an even-handed way, and that there isn't any special treatment for some people as against other people. I think that's a very important principle that needs to be applied. And thirdly, again, as I think we've had aired here over the course of the last number of days, I think there are also issues of privacy that arise in this case. And not just, may I also say, not just privacy in relation to any contact or reports that the Gardai give to ministers or whatever, but also, I think, privacy in relation to some reports that we see appearing in the public domain from time to time, which, can only be one can only wonder about where they, where they have been sourced. So I think it is important that we bear those principles in mind and ensure that there is public confidence in the application of the law, particularly in this area of road traffic offences, which is the main area where most people encounter the enforcement of the law and have direct contact with members of the Garda Síochána.